Welcome to Mantle Mondays. My name is Amar Varma, the co-founder and CEO of Mantle, where we handle everything from cap tables to capital calls. In the startup world, everyone romanticizes persistence, but almost nobody teaches founders how to pivot. Today, we're here with Sam Pajot-Phipps, the co-founder and CEO of Courtyard AI. Last October, Sam and his co-founders made the call to sunset their first product and pivot to an entirely new business. Sam, the founding team, the same investors, in a completely new direction. By the new year, they were building Courtyard AI, betting that AI assistants are becoming the new front door for how customers find businesses. Sam, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Before we get into things, maybe a quick background on how you got involved, who you are, and then we'll get into some of the Courtyard specifics.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Sam Pajot-Phipps. I grew up here actually in Calgary, Alberta. We have our team here. We've got half of our team is in Toronto, half's here in Calgary. But I grew up here, like a kid, spending a lot of time in the mountains. I was always really curious as a kid, and ultimately I ended up going to school out on the East Coast in Halifax. Started off in an arts program where I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I was just happy to get into university. And I took a class in macroeconomics and I really, really loved it. And then I transitioned really quickly to business school out there. And then I moved back to Calgary after grad to start my career in management consulting at Deloitte. So I spent roughly a year and a half there, and pretty quickly I knew I wanted to do something in startups and tech. I was working on SAP projects for big companies, and I didn't really feel like this was where I wanted to go. So I immediately started navigating internally to ask who's working on cool stuff and what's going on in tech and like, what's kind of on the cutting edge. And that's eventually how I ended up making my way into working at early stage startups.
Well, amazing. You have very good taste. Your co-founders are two of my favorite people, Kurt Simpson and Peter Koresha. How did you all come together?
Yeah, so I was it was really cool. We're very fortunate. I was at the time building a company called Moves. It was a fintech company based out of Toronto. And we were building a vertical bank for gig workers in the United States. So Uber drivers, Instacart shoppers. We started that in Canada, and then COVID hit. We pivoted and moved it into the US, and we built that up. I had a mutual colleague who had worked at Wave with both Kirk and Peter, and he found out that Peter and Kirk were about to start something new. They just raised some money and they were looking for, some co-founders and early team. And he put us in contact and I was chatting with them. And what I heard was, a really big vision to build something massive in decentralized identity. And they had an amazing experience. And I love that stage of just like, there's a loose idea on a napkin and like, we got to go figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to build this. So I just jumped at the opportunity to work with them and start again from ground zero and build something up.
Amazing choice. Track records sometimes do a lot of speaking, and that's really impressive. So maybe just quickly, what was the original construct for goConfirm, and maybe set the table for folks?
Yeah. So when we started working, like goConfirm was actually our second name. We went through some names as well. The business started, it was called Key. And we really just had this vision around decentralized identity, which was that proving who you are and things about you online is very, very difficult. And as more of our economy is done online, it becomes really important to be able to prove those things. And we now just see massive issues in terms of online fraud and scams. And we felt that the answer to that was a form of portable identity that the individual could own and control themselves. And there was a lot of people talking about this for a long time. There had been some standards that had been proposed. There's been like a wave of businesses that have tried to do that. We felt that at the time that the timing was right, and we wanted to approach it from a consumer centric perspective of not try and start at the enterprise level, but actually put something into consumers' hands that immediately gives them some utility and helps them solve that problem online. So we spent a lot of time, like the first probably, 4 to 6 months, really just feeling around of like, where is this problem happening and how do we break this down? Like, in a decentralized identity world, you typically have holders of these credentials, you have providers and like validators, and all of these things make this multi-party network. And we wanted to just break it down. Like, how do we break this down to be really simple and make the user kind of the core of this network? So we tried a few different prototypes, and ultimately we ended up landing on the problem of online peer-to-peer commerce, specifically on Facebook and Reddit and Kijiji and those types of marketplaces. We saw that these are very popular marketplaces, but they're incredibly informal. So this is like people buying Taylor Swift tickets, Leafs
Hmm.
playoffs tickets, rentals, and all of that's done on Facebook, rental, like Kijiji, all these platforms. But it's just the Wild West. You're just like left completely alone to suss out legitimacy, scams, and it's just a huge problem.
This is in the real world, you have passports. In the online world, you have the equivalents of, blue check mark verified um, type of thing, and sometimes digital signatures. And I think, we're just in the midst of the final throes of the World Cup. Uh, you know, people have had some interesting experiences with tickets. That was kind of something. Um, what was working? I know, having been through the journey with you all, it was definitely trending in the right directions.
Yeah, there's some things that worked incredibly well. Like we found a real strong pain point, especially around tickets. Like we kept searching for this wedge of like, if you want to get to tens of millions of people with portable identity, like where do you start? And you got to find like a network to break down and a place to begin from. And that's where communities on Facebook and Reddit became really were like the real strong wedge for us. So within I think 12 months of really launching the product, we were in over 600 communities. This is on Facebook and Reddit. And what worked well was finding communities where was this problem. And once we were in, and it was kind of hard to get in, but once you were in, if it took off within a week or 2 weeks, that community, this would be kind of their default way of transacting. So one of our biggest ones was like getting into the Coachella subreddit, like 2 weeks before Coachella. All of a sudden, the Reddit community was like, everyone has to use goConfirm. Like you can't sell tickets without goConfirm. And we had like 3,000 signups that week. It was like crazy, but it took a lot to get to that point where like a community is willing to bring in this tool to trust you and kind of go forward from there. So that worked well. I think what was difficult was transitioning that from like one community to the other of how do you get that spark to go, oh, it worked in Coachella, therefore it can work at like Stagecoach, or it can work for my student rental that summer, or it can work for, I'm buying a purse on Reddit. Like that kind of that next step was very hard to get going.
Yeah, I think in the startup journey, there's always these like wedges,
Mhm.
initial good signs, and compounding those loops is usually the product market fit tough part, right? Um, what were some of the signs where it was like, it's kind of going to be one of the best lessons learned in life, right? Like, what were some of the signs where it was like, this isn't quite accurate, isn't quite right for what we're thinking. We gotta rethink.
I think one of the big signs was that like th- we had in our minds kind of these milestones where like if we can get these things to happen, it feels like we're on the next level of the game. Right? Where we had mapped out all these communities that we felt were kind of the leader. Like it's what every other community looked up to of like, this is the way that a well-run community doing peer-to-peer commerce runs, whether that was watches, tickets, rentals. And we kept setting our sights of like, if you can kind of get that group bought in and running, then it can then move across all these other communities because they see that as kind of the right way to run. And so we had kind of set ourselves these our sights on a few of these communities, and we ended up getting almost all of them. Like whether it was like Coldplay's World Tour, Coachella, Toronto Rave Community, watches, like we knocked a lot of them off. But then the other side of it didn't happen where when then we would go to like the other community for the next festival or the next kind of leap forward and it was a completely new conversation where it was again starting from ground zero where we had to build trust, build credibility, and we weren't able to kind of get that pattern to continue to run where like, hey, it worked here, therefore we can keep going and kind of compound that over time. So I think once the summer had wrapped up, where we had such a massive festival season and saw a lot of success, but then didn't see that translate into, kind of going viral into these other communities once you had tens of thousands of people using it and having complete success with their experience. That's where we were starting to wonder, okay, there might, fundamentally, I think we need to reevaluate our assumptions here around this wedge and, the direction that this product is going. Um, and I think at the same time, you're looking at your product, but then you're also looking at the overall market of like what's been happening in tech and venture and, we're a startup, where are the tailwinds going? And we had been building that business for a little around 2 years and, chat GP like 4.0 had happened, Claude Code had happened, all these things had happened. And it's like, okay, well, where's the game right now?
I love it. So I think for any founder or operator out there, in this thing, it's like pattern matching to your dashboards, being honest about the signals that come in as, we haven't found it yet to it's not there, right? I think those are fine lines and gray areas, and those can oscillate a lot for founders and operators, ourselves included. So I think that's really a powerful lesson for people, and I think that's why we do real time dashboarding, real time metrics, right? To be honest about how that stuff's happening. I'll share with you the lesson that I've learned that's the most valuable is to recognize a false positive. And I think when you can recognize a false positive, that saves you a lot of time, effort, grief from
Mhm.
from from finding things. But it sometimes requires you to reflect and kind of see
Yeah.
the signal through the noise there.
The other big part there too, I just say is like momentum as a startup, which is if you start to have uncertainty around that path forward of like, are you going in the right direction to achieve this like big ambitious vision? Um, and you start to kind of thinking about a pivot, the longer you think about it also has huge risks and trade-offs because that whole time you're burning money and you're also trying to keep your team aligned on a vision and motivated towards achieving that. And that kind of straddling two worlds can be very, very difficult. And you start to reduce your optionality also the longer you take that choice. So obviously it's always a very individual and company specific decision. But I think our choice at the end of the day too was to be very decisive in that and to say, hey, the moment we feel like that signal has changed, we want to move really quickly because we
Hmm.
have to take advantage towards a new opportunity. We need to clear our minds towards a new vision. We need to kind of conserve our runway to execute on that new vision, build the team for that. Like all those things require really quick movement.
So let's dive in here. So let's talk about the exciting reason, the new opportunity. Let's talk about Courtyard AI. What is it? Tell us what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll dig in.
Yeah. Yeah, so Courtyard is really focused on a vision around AI agents and AI are really becoming the front door for how consumers are interacting with businesses. Right now, over 1 billion people every single week are using AI assistants for research, for shopping, for search, all these different things. And more of our online activity is going to be brokered by these agents. And we wanted to see, okay, as we move towards that future, how are small businesses set up to participate in that new future? Where today their front door has really been their website or potentially an aggregator that's kind of providing a marketplace on top of them. What's their new property in this new world where AI is brokering these interactions? And AI to work for them needs to have a very deep understanding of their business. If it doesn't know you and it doesn't understand you, it can't answer questions about your business. It can't do actions with your business. And we felt that small businesses are likely very underserved to participate in this new world. And by small businesses, we really focus in on services businesses. So not necessarily e-commerce. They're very well served by big companies like Shopify and others. But this is your local HVAC company, your gym down the street, a restaurant. They have a very thin presence online today. And AI has very little to go off of when it comes to the long tail of questions and research that people might be doing. So we set out to build what we call a living knowledge base that learns a ton about the business through their existing tools, through their documents, through things that's just inside of the owner's head, a very low friction way to get that knowledge into a knowledge base that we then structure and maintain and update and push out to AI the way that it likes to learn in a cost effective way, in the locations that it looks like to learn, and kind of create this discoverability surface for the small business that's
Oh,
directly
this is
focused on
great.
where AI looks.
If I can take some liberty here and go through a bit of like a historical thing, it feels like it was like City Search for those old enough to remember City Search. The next generation in the mobile world would have been experiencing somebody's business through a reel on a social network
Mm,
to now, you know, having agents match your descriptions and your experience and desires to those reels. It's fascinating. Um, Maybe give us a use case or case study of a prime,
totally.
just so we can get
Yeah.
context.
Yeah, totally. I think like we some of the experiences that we're really focusing on is in any of our use today of like ChatGPT or Gemini, we've probably all experienced you're having a conversation about a business and it gets to a point where it says, I don't know, or it starts to make it up, or it says go to their website to find out. And I think those are all examples of just the edges of knowledge of where AI either doesn't know or can't access, or it's too lazy or token expensive to go do that question. So we kind of look at those, and a lot of those are related to small business knowledge. So, as an example, some of the businesses that we work with, we plug right into their schedules. So, whether that's an HVAC company where they're running Service Titan and they have schedules on their website, or a restaurant running OpenTable, today AI, like a Chat GPT, will not go get that availability from that schedule. It just can't. It's in JavaScript that's on the website, or it's in an iframe, it's anti-botted, whatever the pieces are, it's just not accessible. So it doesn't have the knowledge to answer that question. So what we do is we connect directly to that system, like whatever their tool or SaaS that they're using for scheduling. And then we take that information out and put it into this knowledge base that is then made widely accessible and optimized for how AI wants to find that information. So the goal would be that when you ask that type of question, you actually get a real answer that says, yeah, they're like, you can book your AC repair tomorrow at noon. They're free. Like that's a much better experience for the consumer. It's a much better experience for the business owner because it brings that customer much further down the sales journey.
Yeah, well, kind of analogous to this in my Claude personal world. I've been trying to experiment. Hey, find
Hmm.
me date night. Great places. You know, use all the resources available. Not just the websites. Voice AI, call them, do all these
Yeah,
exciting
yeah, yeah.
things, right? Like it's just a natural loop that we're seeing occur here. So it's quite interesting. Um, I think just from my perspective, the anticipation of the experience, in a HVAC or repair situation, you're like, "Oh, I just need it. I need it done, and I need it done right, and I need trust that when they come, it's going to get done." That comes through the reviews and understanding the business and that surface area. Um, and it's brings you kind of like okay, there's a closure coming to this issue, and I can get it all taken care of. I love that. Uh, how do you see this playing out, like in the next, I don't know, ever uses the timelines, but like what's the end state for something like this? When do we know we've got it right?
Yeah. It does feel like for a subset of small businesses, that, like, the role of the website really is kind of going away. Like, I think for some small businesses, it does still matter quite a bit. But if going forward, really most of our discovery of finding businesses and acting, like, and transacting with those businesses is through AI, it's going to take shape in these kind of AI native protocols. And I think e-commerce has a view of this, which is much more clear right now around, like, the agentic commerce protocol or the universal commerce protocol, where you can, like, shop inside of ChatGPT. And you're maybe never going to like the website of the business. It's all done via ChatGPT. And I think there's a huge convenience that gets unlocked there for the user. You can get a much better experience in a lot of ways. The information is more accessible. So I do think one kind of where this it looks like this is going is that small businesses really need to stand up kind of like a new form of a website in a way that is marketing to AI and a marketing to agents and is servicing agents, not necessarily serving customers directly. I think this transition will take time, of course, and there's going to be a long tail of businesses. But I think what we see is it's obvious what's happening with developer tooling right now. Like you have all these amazing developer tools that are saying our customer are agents. So we build all these agent native documentation, agent payments, agent authentication, all these things to market and offer the best product to agents that are ultimately making that decision on behalf of the user who's using Claude Code or Codex. And I do think a version of that is kind of trickling down to the consumer. Whereas a consumer, I'm using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and it's getting more and more powerful. And what is kind of the marketing to those agents for the small business? And I think we're kind of seeing into the future with developer tools and trying to pull it forward.
Yeah, I love it. I just as you were saying it, I went into Google and I was like punched in Italian restaurant, and then now Google has that AI mode tab, and I went to the AI mode tab, and it pulled up. It had context. It's like it's probably looking for restaurants around me. It gave me a bunch of options, and then on the right side, it has some social profiles of different restaurants that it may or may not have listed there, and experiences around restaurants. It's like a much different setup now. I love it. Um,
Yeah. I think it does pose too like new challenges, which is I think like one term that people are using for this is zero click, which is like you just get your answer. You're not clicking anymore. You just show up at that Italian restaurant. So what does attribution and tracking kind of look like in this new world? And as a small business or even as an enterprise, how do you measure success here? Of like I'm giving agents what they want, my customers are getting their answers, but I can't really see the loop get closed as well as I used to with SEO or paid ads? And I think that's a big open question.
yeah, so some transition from SEO to AI detectable or AI discoverable, agent discoverable content and experience. I think the experience element you bring up is quite key. If I can go at a different time and get a better deal, of course I'll do that, right? Like I wouldn't unless I couldn't make the time. Um,
Yeah, and yeah, it's also a new idea too of like your competitive advantage in this new world isn't as much gatekeeping knowledge. It's actually being as open as possible, right? Like you think of all the businesses where they're like, oh, I don't want like my competitors to scrape out this data, and maybe I don't want to put all that out there. I want them to call. I want to have that like hook or that connection. And I think that is going to be challenged a little bit too here, which is the more open you are in like your offerings, whether that's like how you quote insurance or your restaurant menu or how you quote a deck being built, the more open you are about that, the more AI can actually act as your sales manager or act as your receptionist because it's unbelievably smart. It's on 24/7. It's used by over a billion people. Like you can really enable that to be this amazing leverage point for your business. But if you kind of hold onto all that information, not put it out there, like it's just not going to be able to answer those questions, and it'll go to whoever can because it wants to solve the answer for the user.
I think what's super interesting, I agree with you. And the other interesting part is as consumers, we're looking for, things our agents can do. If you take a look from the other side, businesses have agents. They're also looking for customers in real time, right? So finding that interface, finding the common ground where they can go broker with each other and pick outcomes. I think is very, very interesting to go dig deeper on. Switching gears slightly, tell me a bit about how you're developing products and what's kind of changed or is the same since you started. I think everybody's had to redo and rethink how they do things since at least in 2026. But maybe give us your turn.
Massively, yeah, like, and it's crazy exciting too. Like I've never worked harder and I've never felt more excited too at the same time because there's just so much now that you can do individually. And I don't have a software engineering background, but my ability now to contribute everywhere is like unlocked. It's unbelievably exciting as someone who's building. Um, as a team, we really focus on like giving everyone, especially as a small team, like everyone has access to everything that they need all the time. So whether you're working on like outbound or you're building some of the core product, making sure that everyone has access to like the same data, the same tools, because these things really compound together when agents have all the context possible around what the product is, who the customers are, and building a lot of shared kind of utilities, whether those are agent skills or repositories, the playbooks, context, that's really helpful. Um,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I
yeah.
think if you'd told me 3 years ago, maybe not 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that a markdown file would be very valuable, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah. I'm using
just
Markdown more than Google Docs.
like it
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
like
yeah.
okay, got it. What's been some of the big tools you've used that's unlocked things, just maybe to share platforms across the community that people can think about using?
Um, Yeah, I think for me, it does all kind of come down to Claude Code. I'd say like I'm just in it all the time now. But what's been really amazing, I think, is creating specific agents for like the various functions that maybe I would have hired for or brought in a contractor for, but now I can actually just have an agent do it. So, as an example, in Claude Code, I have different sessions that are ongoing for various essentially job functions, like a website designer, SEO slash GEO go to market, a go to market engineer, and loading those up with like the right context and skills
Yes.
has been really, really valuable. Where I don't feel now like I need to go and bring in often someone else externally to do a lot of those tasks. Like last weekend, for example, I was so frustrated with our website on Webflow that I just had like, Opus 4.8 over the weekend, just migrated all over. And like that was just awesome. Like it was just so much easier. Now I control it all. And now we can continue to build that in kind of the way that we see fit.
That's amazing. Um, I think everybody is feeling this moment of empowerment, even if, you do or don't have a background in doing this stuff. The playing field's gotten leveled so quickly, which is great because I think it's exposing a lot of opportunity for everybody. You know, um, whatever the measure is in terms of output, tokens, productivity, whatever it is, I think there's a general sense we're overall better today than we were, a year ago, so to speak. What's the next 10x unlock in this productivity gain from a company building perspective in your?
Good question. Um, I think I know that some people, it seems like sometimes on X, a lot of people have unlocked this, and I'm trying to figure it out still at our company, which is really around like long running autonomous work. I think, today, I think for a lot of our team, we are still often, guiding agents along the development path where, we're less and less every single kind of model release and as harnesses get better. But I do think the big unlock is being able to give our agents the right context to then execute over a long, long time. And it seems like some people are starting to do that quite well. And we're trying to figure out, what are the patterns, what are the playbooks that are working well, and how do we set up our tech stack to enable that as much as possible, right? Like what investments what we need to make in terms of um, like code review, like having the right monorepo structure, like whatever those things are that just make sure that we can really set up agents to succeed well in terms of moving our roadmap forward. So I think that's going to be the big unlock is where like today, maybe every 3 or 4 hours, I kind of have to check in and like do some guidance. Really, having something run over the weekend and come back to it and, be feeling, really good about that output.
Yeah, those loops are getting better and better,
Mhm.
right? And tools of choice. You mentioned Opus earlier. Any other tools of choice?
Ooh, I don't know. One that I've been playing a lot with recently is like the video creation skills. Cause like, we're a super small team. So I do a lot of our marketing and asset creation and like the skills that have been created around video, whether it's hyperframes or remotion, are just getting so, so good. And recently, I think with 5.6 Sol, it's gotten very impressive of combining those things together. So something that I used to go pay like maybe $5,000-6,000 to get built, you can get a pretty good version of it within a few hours of defining the right storyboard. So I think that like recently that's been really fun as we think about like creating marketing materials and visuals and updating our website to communicate better to small business owners, is like that those tools are getting really good.
Nice, nice, nice. Any tools you're using outside of your Courtyard experience?
I've been thinking about this idea of like software as like a gift in like your personal life. And like my sister's a nurse and like she often will send out like pictures of her schedule over like 3 or 4 months. And like everyone's like always referring back in our WhatsApp channel to like these photos. I was like, this sucks. Like we shouldn't be doing this. So I just had like Claude Code build like a really simple app that turned those pictures into a spreadsheet and then put them in. And now anyone can click this app and it's like, is Suzanne, my sister, working? And then is
Very
she
cool.
free? And I just sent it out to my whole extended family. And like it's kind of a gift. Like it was a little bit of my time via one of these models. And now everyone uses it. And they talk about how fun it is and it's super cute. And I just think in your personal life, it's kind of fun to think of those things where like software can be this gift now to people where it's just a nice a
Yeah.
nice offering of, hey, I know you have this problem. It's just a one problem for one person, maybe, and it doesn't need to be a business, doesn't need to make money, but it's this nice thing that has utility.
Yeah. If I get philosophical here for a second, humankind spent its entire history trying to create a picture or words to capture the experience of what was going on. And then, you know, libraries started to occur in books, and then the web was initially the digitization of these books. And then it was really a culmination of human experience and human knowledge all in one place, which made it so powerful. And now I'm watching this AI model generation just come and say, okay, we assume everybody knows everything now. Let's give you the next. And it's fascinating to watch this stuff happen. So I've just been, my life's changing every day. It's changed a lot through this experience. Um, Maybe a couple of lessons learned. I know we talked about earlier, having a dashboard, having signal to noise, knowing where things are coming and when things aren't coming. Um, Maybe what's a piece of advice you can kind of share explicitly with the audience, really around, you know, um, when you need to kind of think about things and when you're on the right path, just based on some of the signal to noise you're seeing now.
Mm. Yeah, I think, well, some of the like lessons learned, I think a big piece around our experience with goConfirm was, um, you know, these are very hard decisions to make, and they're very uncomfortable and difficult, especially when it comes to people in the team. Like, we had an amazing team, and that was a very difficult decision to move away and completely pivot the company and go down, like, to start from zero again. Um, but those are kind of very important decisions that how uncomfortable they are can kind of force you sometimes to not make them or delay them. And I think that, like, sometimes that's actually a really strong signal when it is, like, very uncomfortable and you're like, this is really hard. I kind of want to avoid this. Like, I might upset people. I'm scared of it. Those are actually sometimes really good signals in a way that, like, you're actually doing the thing that you should be doing
Yeah,
because it's very, very hard.
yeah,
And I've been part of organizations in the past where, like, that discomfort leads you to, like, hedge or take your time or, put one foot in on one side and one foot out on the other. And with startups, like, there's just so many reasons why it can go wrong that you can't afford to have, like, one foot in or one foot out or, like, not deal with that discomfort. So I think, just constantly having those conversations with your co-founders, especially, that are just very honest, blunt, holding each other accountable to, like, what are we really seeing here? And do we still have that conviction? Like, why do you have it? Why do I not? Or, like, pushing back on a hypothesis that didn't turn out. Like, that accountability amongst co-founders, I think, is extremely important. And for us was unbelievably helpful to try make a very clear and important decision like that.
I love the narrative of this that you said, because it points to a few things. One, the most important thing amongst founders and teams, the intellectual honesty, right? I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen in the successful teams. They're just honest about it. They're like, hey, this is working, this is not working. You know, when this trip's here, we've got something, and when this trip's here, it goes from green to yellow, right? Like, these are just the types of intellectually honest conversations that I love, and to you know hear that that's what you're going through. And I think founding teams should be going through it daily. It shouldn't be a once every 6 months kind of thing. It should be like a daily conversation. And that's why the water cooler conversations missing through COVID, showed initial signs of productivity, but over time it was like, oh, we were missing some of these key conversations where it's like, we agreed to do this thing. Should we be doing it, right? And I think that's
Yeah,
been one of the greatest
totally.
things that's come back with fervor. So that's really great.
Totally. Yeah, it's
Um,
those conversations, like, they almost require in person because there's no time limit to them, and you need to be uncomfortable and just, like, stick in it. And with Zoom, it's just so much more difficult to have the endurance to have those types of conversations because, yeah, you're just not in person.
Maybe also share, like, there's obviously tough decisions that we all go through. When sunsetting a product, any customer feedback or comments that, outside of just being visceral reactions, really stuck with you, both positive or negative?
Yeah. I'd say it was almost universally positive on our side, which was amazing, but also really hard because it was amazing because it was like, wow, like it's awesome to hear that we built something that people cared about. It's hard because it also kind of makes you second guess yourself too, right? You're like, oh, like all these people, like they miss it and they loved it, and you're like, but that doesn't change the facts. The facts are the facts, and we've made these decisions. But that was really nice, I think, to hear, especially like on Reddit and on Facebook and all the communities that we're in. A lot of people expressed that it was really helpful and that they felt that there was a missing gap. And then we've seen since then, like little side projects actually of people try and create their own version of goConfirm, or I've had people reach out to ask like if they like if we'd help out helping them set something up similar. So I think it really spoke to a need. And I think that was really nice to hear that we made an impact and we helped those communities, do what they wanted to do, which was either buy or sell watches, tickets, go to amazing events, and feel safe about it.
Um, all right, couple more before we get in the rapid fire. What's the one thing every founder can do this week to get AI to notice their business?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on your business, but I'd start off with just prompt. Like I would prompt your favorite model and use a consumer model, like use something like ChatGPT or Gemini, where like if that's what your audience is likely using, and have kind of like a buying conversation with ChatGPT about your business. Like go multi-turn and see how it responds to the types of questions that your customers are likely asking, and just notice what are the edges there. Like where does it talk about a competitor? Or where does it say, I can't answer, go to the website? Or it'll offer you a suggestion, like, would you like me to look that up? And you say yes. And then it comes back and it says, oh, never mind. Like, I don't know, or I can't. Those are great evidence of where there's just a gap in knowledge. And I think you need to then go back to your website and say, okay, where do we address those gaps? Because clearly they're not accessible today. Either the information is in a format that AI can't find or reason on. Maybe it's in a PDF or it's in like a little animation drop down filter. Like these are things that AI, a consumer AI model, is not driving. So you need to kind of think about how do you pull that stuff out and make it in a format that is really easy for AI to find and reason on top of.
I love it. That's free if you're listening to this, and that would cost you a lot of money to hire somebody to figure that out. Um, couple last quick things. Where do people find you, and how do they get involved with Courtyard?
Yeah. So our website's getcourtyard.ai. So that's no number one place to just learn about our product, especially if you're running a small business or you know someone who's running a small business. We're actively working with small businesses across a variety of industries. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn or on X.
Amazing. All right, ready for some rapid fire as we close it
Sure.
up?
Okay.
Uh, I like this one. Red or white?
Red.
Favorite show or movie?
Yeah. Maybe this is gonna be a contentious one, but my favorite movie is National Treasure with Nicolas Cage. Almost as good as the sequel, National Treasure 2, but it's got all my favorite recipes of a movie in terms of travel and history. It's awesome.
Awesome. And what outside of Courtyard gets you in a flow state? Rock climbing, skiing. Give us the
Yeah,
insights.
those two for sure. Rock climbing, definitely. You have to be in a flow state or else you're in trouble. So it just forces you to be in the moment. Yeah, I like to climb quite a bit, and then hiking. So hiking with my family or friends, just in the mountains, is awesome.
Favorite trail?
Ooh, favorite trail. It's actually not that impressive in terms of like, but it's more how accessible it is. There's a trail right outside from where my parents live in Canmore called Montaigne, and I love it just because I can leave my parents' place and I can do this amazing trail run, and it's just out the door, and you get beautiful mountain views of the Bow Valley. So that's my favorite trail.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Look, Sam, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm excited. I know you shared some really good lessons with the community on how to find things, how to know when things aren't working, and what to look for next. So appreciate your candor and insight, and best with Courtyard.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.